just want to say welcome and thank you guys for coming to High Power's very first workshop that we're doing. This is my friend Blake. He's a big part of High Power as well. Y'all can make some noise for my friend Blake. He and I, we've been in conversation about different things that we want to do here in the local community, ways that we want to bring health and fitness. And the communication about doing workshops was something that kept coming back. So what we'd like to do is every month have a new workshop that brings health and wellness to the community, different insights or strategies or whatever it may be to kind of help you guys as another free resource. So thank you guys for coming to the first one. It means a lot to me. I really appreciate it. I also want to say thank you to Cole and Ross, the Southwest Center, Texarkana, Texas Parks and Rec for allowing us to do this. So I really appreciate y'all. I want to talk a little bit about who we are, who High Powered is, and what our mission is and all that different kind of stuff, because chances are you probably never heard of this. You know, we're new, we're about 2.5 years old, and what we are, we're a local health and wellness nonprofit here in Texarkana, and our goal is to simply bring health and wellness to the community. Guys, I don't know if y'all have seen the stats, but they say by 2030, over half the population will be obese. There's all of these different issues going on with health, and stress. We're in a mental health epidemic. There's all kinds of problems, and so we want to relieve that burden off of the government, off of our community officials, and try to help do that. But that's not all we do. We have a central mission or a focus that we are trying to accomplish. And so my friend Blake and I, we've been in discussion about what we really like, what is the heart of High Powered. And so we kept coming back to this idea of clothing the orphans. We've done a few things here in the past where, we've worked with CASA and Children's Advocacy Center. We did this thing here recently where we did some stuff with Tacos for Life, and we were able to help feed children in Haiti. And so we keep coming back to this idea of kids. And that's where our heart is we want to clothe the orphans. So that is the central mission behind High Powered, is every time we do one of these workshops or we do a community workout or fundraisers or anything like that, that's where the money's going, is trying to help clothe the orphans. So we're going to start here with local foster homes and orphanages, CASA, all of these different things, and then we're going to start to expand into Texas, into Arkansas, Louisiana, and then hopefully we start going nationwide with this, just going to different places, going in, sharing the gospel with kids, bringing gifts, showing them love, and the health and fitness is what's going to drive this. Okay, so we're trying to serve two purposes. The mission is the children, but the vision is the children, but the mission is through health and fitness. So I hope that kind of makes sense. Brings a little bit of clarity into who we are and what we're trying to accomplish. And I'll say this now, and I'll also say this again at the end, is if you feel led to help give and contribute to this, hey, we'd really appreciate it. Even if it's $1, $5, $10, every cent helps with this mission. It's going to help us do more workshops like this. It's going to help us expand into our community and beyond. And so if you feel led, I'm going to ask now, and then at the very end I'll ask again. You can just scan that QR code or just come and talk to me and Blake afterwards. And we'd love to have your assistance, your contribution. It means a lot. It's all going right back into our community or to the kids. So I'd also like to take this quick moment to just say thank you to our sponsors. These are our 2024 sponsors who are helping us make this possible. And so I've got to give credit where it's due. We would not be able to do this without them. I've got my father-in-law in the house, Mike Mahone, and as you can see, he's got this awesome picture down here at the bottom with the shades. I think that's probably my favorite one. Yeah, he did a little Photoshopped. I was thinking about putting like a cigar and a gold chain on there too, but I held back. So anyways, yeah, huge thank you to them. So I'll ask you guys, are y'all ready? Y'all ready to dive into some strategies? As we do this, or before we dive in, I'd like to ask you, on a scale from 1 to 10, what would you assess your stress level at? Where would you say, sitting in this room today, where's your stress level at? 6. About a 4, 6 maybe, okay? 1 being I'm chill, I'm zen, I got no worries in the world, all is good. 10 being I'm about to do something bad. He's like, don't put that on me. So I think it's important that we kind of, before we dive into this, we assess where we're at. And I'd also like to ask you, how are you currently managing your stress? What are your current strategies? We'll talk a little bit more about it here in a second, but I find that today we drift into escapism. You know, we start scrolling on our phones. We maybe go to drinking or hanging out with our friends. Anything we can do to block out the stress. And I think that there can be some value in, you know, maybe spending some time enjoying yourself, maybe taking a warm bath or something like that. But there's also times when we need to say, hey, I got to solve this problem. You know, I don't want this thing to defeat me, so I need to face it. You know what I mean? So I think it's important that in order for us to do that, we define what stress is. So I want to ask you guys, you know, this is a workshop. This is not some like keynote speech where I'm going to get up here and like, you know, just be talking. Like, I want to communicate with you guys. Let it be a dialogue. Can you all tell me like what y'all's definition of stress is?
Aggravation.
Okay, aggravation.
Lack of focus.
Okay, lack of focus. That's good.
Lack of meeting expectations.
Okay.
Disorganization.
Disorganization.
Yeah.
So is this an actual stress or is it a stressor? Are these things that are causing stress or is this actually what stress is? Both. So the actual definition of stress is the mental or emotional strain or tension caused by a difficult or challenging situation. So when we're feeling stress, what we're feeling is tension. We're feeling aggravation. We're feeling these things from maybe external or internal circumstances. So it's important when we try to define what stress is. Most people don't even we feel it, but we don't know what it is. So the first thing that we have to do in order to overcome something is we've got to define exactly what it is. I've got a few stats up here if you want to take like a quick picture of this. I think this is like a little alarming to think about. These are all recent statistics. 49% of adults report feeling stress today. Half of our population is going through some stressful times. And that's interesting because in 2003, it was only 33%. So we've got this huge jump, you know, almost 20% difference between how stressed we were then and how stressed we are now. And my question is this a pattern that's going to continue to go up as we move into the future? Another question I have for you guys is what's different from then to now? You know, I think we've seen since 2003, we've seen social media has expanded. The internet's gone crazy. You know, not to mention economic times are a little bit more challenging. This 33% was prior to the 2009 housing crisis. So we've seen a lot of different changes happen over the last 20 years. And it's interesting to note that we've got an upward trajectory. And so the thing is like the times are changing. I think our strategy should change too. 75% of Americans reported feeling physical or emotional symptoms of stress within the last month. Sorry, physical or mental symptoms. Meaning within the past month, you were feeling stress. Like you were not just like feeling stress like mentally, but like you were getting symptoms. Like you're experiencing burnout. You're saying, you know what, I'm calling in today. I just can't feel it. You know, I'm not going in. You know what, like I'm getting sick. I'm getting sick because I'm physically so stressed. So that's interesting to note. 75% in the last month. And if we're being honest, I would say it's probably even a little bit higher than that. I mean, this is coming from the American Psychological Association. I don't know where they're getting their study like values from, but I'd be willing to bet it's a little bit higher. So when we look at stress, there's two different kinds of stress that I want to talk about today. One being acute stress, and the other being chronic stress. Right? We've got to define it. We've got to pinpoint exactly what this stress is that we're feeling, because not all stress is bad. Acute stress is actually really good for you. When you go to the gym, you're working out, you're exercising, you're tearing those muscle fibers, you're getting your heart rate up. This is acute stress. It's temporary, it's challenging, it's putting stress on your body, but you adjust, you adapt, you overcome, and you get stronger in the process. Same thing if we're at work or we're at school or something, we're, you know, immersed in a project or something like that. That can be a stressful situation. You know, we're working, we're trying to meet deadlines, we're doing all of these things, but it's acute. It's not a permanent situation, and it can actually help us grow in the process. But chronic stress, this is where it weighs on us. It's heavy. It's usually outside of our control, and it is almost like we don't know how to manage it. We don't know how to handle that situation, and that's really what I want to get to the bottom of today. And, I wish I had something to demonstrate to drive this point home. But the best way that I can do it is, you imagine you go to a gym, you've got a long line of dumbbells, and you grab a 10-pound dumbbell. Now, 10 pounds, that's not very heavy, right? I mean, 10 pounds, you could probably curl that all day. But if you take that same 10-pound dumbbell and you hold it out like this, it's not going to be long before it starts to burn. It starts to hurt. It's all you can think about. It's all you can focus on. And before long, you're going to start to affect your posture. You're going to start trying to lean forward, trying to take the tension off. It's going to drop down. You're going to have to lift it up, doing anything you can to take that tension off. And what's interesting is many of us, we go our entire lives living this way. We're holding this dumbbell out. And, we go to, school or church or work or whatever it may be, and we're holding this dumbbell, we're holding this weight, and we're talking to people, and we're communicating with people, and we're trying to smile and do our thing. But really what we're doing is we're focused on the heat, on the burn, this stress that just won't escape. But listen to me today. What we're going to focus on today is finding ways that we can let go of that dumbbell, let it drop to the floor, step back, and walk away. And I know you're asking, okay, Chase, well, how do we actually do that? How are we actually going to let go of the stress and walk away? We're going to do that, but first I want to talk about something called the time, money, energy paradox. Once again, I'm diving super deep here, just here at the beginning, so we can pinpoint exactly where the stress comes from. Now, has anybody here heard of the time, money, energy paradox? Cool. I'm excited to show this to you guys. So, this is kind of how it works. And we all experience this. Whenever we're younger, we've all got a lot of time and energy, but we don't have a lot of money. As we get older, we're in our professional career, we're trying to get established, we're trying to do things in the world. We've got a lot of money and energy, but we don't have a whole lot of time. Then as we get older, maybe we're getting, we're completely established in our career, we're getting ready to retire, maybe we've already retired. We've got a lot of money and time, but now we don't have the energy. And these are the places where the stress comes in. And my question to you guys is two. One, do you think there's a way we can balance all three of these things? Do you think it's possible to find the right balance between time, money, and energy, no matter where you're at in life? And the other question I would ask you is, what's your biggest stressor? What's your big stress point right now? What's causing you the most strife? And so these are important because any stressor that we look at, it may not directly be money, energy, or time, but whatever the stressor is can usually be traced back to this. A few other stress points that we might have are relationship issues, workplace environment, maybe lifestyle changes or legal issues. It could be a lack of personal fulfillment. I don't feel like I'm living the life I thought I was going to live. I saw myself doing something completely different by this time, or I don't feel like I'm contributing enough to society. These things can all add to your stress. And so this is not limited to the things that you can experience, but just to kind of give you an idea, once again, I just really want to pinpoint where it is. And so I want to ask you once again, how do you currently manage these stressors? What are your strategies? Anybody got anything?
For me, it's I base my faith in Christ the first thing. Second is exercise.
Good.
Working out, being able to, use your body to, at least lose weight as well. At the same time, to boost your immune system. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And we're going to talk about some of those. How about you?
Pickleball.
What is it?
Pickleball.
Pickleball. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. That's a great stress reliever. Yoga. Yes, yoga's good. We're going to talk on some of that kind of stuff today. Anything else, you guys?
Bike ride.
Bike riding. I love that a lot of these are health and fitness related. And I'm going to go ahead and say flat out, I know I'm a personal trainer, I know this is what I do for a living, but don't feel like y'all got to impress me or anything. We can be open and vulnerable here, If it's if there's some other ways that we can do it, that's okay too, because we're going to dive into some real strategies. So let's dive into the first one I've got for you guys. The first one I have is setting proper boundaries. A big reason many of us experience stress today is because we lack proper boundaries. And I'll kind of explain a little bit about what a boundary is. A boundary is just simply a line that marks or limits an area. It's like a dividing line. Many times we want to live wild and free. We don't want any restraints. We want all the walls down. We want to just go. But the thing is when we don't have any boundaries, we're exposed to the wild. And usually that means that we can be attacked, we can be overcome, we can be, and that can cause us stress. But actually, if we have walls up, if we have boundaries up, it provides us freedom within those lines. It's kind of like golfing, and I'm not really the guy to talk about golf, but when you play, you're hitting the ball down a fairway. You want to stay within this fairway. And it's the same thing with our life, right? If we get out of that fairway, then we're not doing very good in our game, right? So we want to stay within that line. You can hit the ball anywhere you want to go, but you want to stay within those lines. And it's the same thing with this. Whenever we get out of the fairway, that's when we start to experience stress. So some things that happen, or some ways that we don't have boundaries, right? We overcommit to projects. People continue to come to us, hey, can you do this for me? Yeah, sure, right? Hey, we're people pleasing. We always want to make other people happy before we make ourselves happy. We allow for interruptions during the workday. We have like an open door policy where everybody can come in, and no matter what project we're working on, anybody can come in and just kind of distract us. Lack of privacy or ignoring your personal needs. Once again, a lot of these things, we're in this culture where we want to help others, we want to be kind, we want to do good in the world. However, sometimes we got to take care of ourselves first. And sometimes it makes it look, some of these things like, I don't want any interruptions. That can seem like, oh, wow, he's kind of a jerk. Well, it's like, no. It's like, I'm trying to get some things done. It's not selfish. It's actually selfless. Because when we have proper boundaries set up, then you can make sure you're taken care of to better serve them. And so I have a story that I want to share with you guys. I'm working on a book right now. It's called The Garden of Greatness. And this story is about some time I spent with my grandmother about 10 years ago when I was going through a difficult time in my life, and I had a lot of debt accumulated, and I couldn't get a job, and I was just struggling. And so she took me in under her wing, and she was like, hey, I'm going to pay you to work in my yard. And I thought she was just going to pay me, and I was going to pay off my debts, but she actually kind of became like a mentor to me. She taught me some valuable life lessons. And one of the lessons that she taught me was mend your fences. And so one day, this book, it doesn't just take place in the garden. She actually would take me out to the ranch and we'd do some work. So we're out at the ranch and we're riding horses and we're tending to the cattle and stuff like that. And we come up to this fence. And this fence has been like broken, right? Knocked down, busted up, whatever. And we have to fix this fence. So we go, we get some wire, and we're mending this fence, we're fixing it up. And she uses this as like an opportunity to teach. She says, hey, we've got to have boundaries in our own life too. If we don't have proper fences and proper boundaries built, walls established, then it allows people to take advantage of us. If we don't have boundaries set up for our finances, then we're spending recklessly. Obviously, that's going to lead to issues. Anyway, she started to express how not having these boundaries is the big reason why we experience stress. And so it's important that we start to mend our own fences, whether it's emotional, it's relational, it's financial, it's mental. Protect your peace. That's really what I'm getting to, is we've got to protect our peace. And so how do we do that? We got to learn to say no. Going back to the people pleasing or the overcommitting, take it as a sign of trust, of, you are the right fit for the job when people are coming to you and asking you for help. But hey, there's only so much we can take on, right? And we'll actually ruin our reputation by saying yes too much, because then we're going to overcommit. We can't fulfill our obligations. We're burning out. And then they're like, wow, I thought he was known for doing a good job, or she was known for doing a great job. And actually, they did an awful job, And so we've got to learn to say no. The next one I'll share with you is proper time management. Time management is such a hard one, and it's such a slippery slope, even for myself. And there's many different strategies that we can talk about as far as how to, develop good time management. But I'm just going to share one with you today, and this is called time boxing. This might be the most type A thing you've ever seen in your life, but this was actually something I believe it traces all the way back to Benjamin Franklin. And so this is just a Google Calendar, and they blocked off time for different things. And so even if you work a standard, 9 to 5 job, you can go in here and say, hey, from 9 to 10, I'm answering emails. From 10 to 11, I'm in a business meeting. From 11 to 12, I'm in lunch. And you're blocking out your entire day. Because many times we try to process all this stuff in our head, and it's really hard to manage anything inside. And the best way to externally process something is to get it out of us, right? Put it onto a calendar, put it onto a page. And then the cool thing with the Google Calendar is you can kind of click and drag and move things along. So it's not like a rigid thing, but it helps get it onto a page. And I heard Grant Cardone say that white space on the calendar is a foothold for the devil. You know, like when we had this white space on the devil, or white space on the devil, when we had this white space on the calendar, that's when we start feeling these thoughts come in, we start getting stressed out and stuff like that. So having things blocked in, I mean, even mine, I will put stuff in like, hey, this is my time with family. You know, this is I'm putting dinner on mine. I'm putting things like that are pretty nonsensical to some people, but to me, it's like it helps sing it out, and it helps me honor my time. Like, hey, this is on the calendar. I'm sorry, I can't commit to that. That's my bathing time. You know what I mean? Like, and it shows self-respect as well. It's like, hey, this is like, you know, this is my time. You honor your time. So I want to share that with you guys. I think it could be a potential positive strategy. The last thing I'll share with you is leave the gloves outside. This is another story that my grandmother shared with me is, you know, we'd be working out in the yard and we come in for lunch. And whenever we go in for lunch, there'd be a little table set out there and she'd say, hey, make sure you take off your gloves and wipe your shoes off. So we take our gloves off and we go inside. So we go in, we're eating lunch, we're spending time. And one time I said, you know, all right, hey, so what do we need to work on this afternoon? What are some things that we need to get taken care of out in the yard? And she said, hey, where are your gloves? I said, they're right outside. What do you mean? She said, then leave them out there. And the point she was trying to make is many times we bring work back home with us. And so leaving the gloves outside was a sign to say, hey, the work is done. I'm going to go inside. This is time for family, fun, fellowship, those kinds of things. And it goes back to a story of a carpenter. And a friend of mine told me the story. This carpenter, he had, you know, his carpenter belt. And he had his, you know, hammer and all this different stuff. And just outside his house, there was a tree. It had a big nail in it. So every day he got home, he'd take his belt off and he'd hang it on the tree and he'd go inside. And that was like his physical sign of, hey, I'm leaving my work outside. When I come inside, this is time with my family. And this is time to shut off. And I'll be honest with you guys, I'm putting this on here. This is in my book. This is one of the biggest things I struggle with. I do my personal training outside in my garage. And so the line is really blurred between home life and work life because it's all there. It's all mixed together. You know, my family, they'll even come outside in the garage with me while I'm working with clients. And that's a great thing, right? But it starts to blur the lines. I heard somebody say, don't ever do your work in your bedroom because now you're associating the place where you sleep with the place where you work. And so I've even done this myself. My son will be taking a nap and I'm trying to get stuff done on my laptop. And then that night, I'm like wondering why I can't go to sleep. I'm still thinking about work. Well, I've now associated my bed as a place where I do business. And it just starts to, once again, there's no boundaries there. That's really the point I'm trying to make, is establishing those boundaries. So what do y'all think? Does this stuff kind of help?
Yeah.
Awesome. So let's dive into the second strategy I want to share today. This is one that I think y'all all expected, coming from High Powered, as being a health and wellness nonprofit. Exercise and nutrition. It's got to be stated. We're going to talk about it a little bit. But I'm going to go a little bit deeper beyond what I think some of you guys have been talking about. I know here today we probably have some busy professionals. You know, y'all got a lot going on in your life. So I'm not going to tell you, hey, you need to be going to the gym 5 days a week, spending 2 hours in there, you know, all that different kind of stuff. I'm going to give you some simple, quick things that can really make a huge impact. But before I do, I think it's necessary to talk about exercise or lack thereof and how it affects our body and where the stress actually comes from. So we have cortisol, inflammation, and a sedentary lifestyle. Guys, if you look back in history, 50, 100 years ago, there were no gyms. There were no gyms because your life was the gym. You know, we had the Industrial Revolution. You know, agriculture was huge. Our job was like working in fields and in factories. We were constantly moving and doing these things. But now we have these jobs where we're stuck in the desk for 8 hours, and it's leading to the sedentary lifestyle. You know, we have, you know, fast food, of course, is huge. And it leads to when we sit still for a long time and we're grabbing food on the go and, you know, we're not necessarily as active or eating as healthy as we were, you know, just 30, 50 years ago, it leads to inflammation. The more inflammation we have in our body, the more cortisol, or the stress hormone, we have flowing through our body. And so many times, The reason we're feeling stressed is simply because we're not active, we're not moving, and we're allowing this inflammation to be in our bodies. And it's not even something where you're overweight or something, and that's why you're feeling this cortisol or anything. I mean, even healthy individuals are experiencing this. And so we're going to dive into how we can kind of mitigate this a little bit. The 3 things we'll talk about are slay your demons with exercise, squash the inflammation with quality nutrition, and number 3, go to bed. So I'll talk a little bit about this slay your demons idea. I used to be really big into Joe Rogan. For you guys who don't know who that is, he has this huge podcast, right? And I would listen to him, particularly during a time when my wife and I, we lived in Austin. I would have to commute 30 minutes to university, 30 minutes to work, and then 30 minutes back home. So I had a lot of time in my car, and I would listen to this guy because he'd talk about health, wellness, all these different ideas. And he mentioned, and it was just the perfect time I heard this, about being stuck in traffic and just having that road rage, just being angry and lashing out at people and stuff like that. And he made a great point. He said the reason people are getting road rage is because they haven't slayed their demons in the gym. And he said that anytime he would go a couple of days without going to the gym and relieving that stress by doing exercise, sure enough, he'd be stuck in traffic and he'd start feeling just that anger well up inside of him. Guys, exercise is an incredible way to relieve your stress. I mean, literally, I have one client, and she will text message me 30 minutes to an hour before she gets there, we're doing slam balls today. She's like, I've had a day, I need to let go of some aggression. And so she'll come in and she's going to slam this ball and get all of her anger out. And then she leaves and she feels better. And I mean, it's true. Exercise does a lot for us as far as managing and mitigating any stress that we might have. But I understand, once again, a lot of you guys, y'all are busy. You've got different lifestyles. I think pickleball is a huge one. I saw a study, I think it was just yesterday, that was discussing how tennis athletes are guaranteed, this is a study, to live 25 years longer than long distance marathon runners. Pickleball, of course, being a derivative of tennis, you're getting a lot of the same benefits. A lot of the same benefits. And it's just because of all of the different things that go through, tennis. Of course, your hand-eye coordination. You're moving really fast with little intermittent breaks. Your focus, absolutely. There's all of these different things that just keep your body performing at a lot higher of a what do you want to call it? A higher level of focus, I guess, than hey, I'm just running. So it's interesting. But once again, maybe that's your thing, maybe not. But here are some things that I think can really, really help. The first one is daily walks. This is probably the greatest health strategy in the world. I mean, seriously, the ladies in the mall who are walking, they're on to something, because that is a powerful strategy. And so I know you guys are busy. Morning walks right before you go to work, 10, 30 minutes at the most, or as soon as you get done with dinner in the evening, a postprandial walk, or going for a walk after you eat a meal. A lot of positive benefits as far as even boosting your metabolism, keeping weight off, all that kind of good stuff. Once again, it's not that you have to go walk for an hour or anything, but just 10, 20, 30 minutes, anything to just get your body moving. The second thing I'll share with you is what I call oiling the machine. This is a simple 5-10-minute high-intensity workout, preferably first thing in the morning or right when you get home from work. Hey, I've got no time today. I've got a lot of different stuff going on. This is your go-to. 5 minutes, you're going to do some push-ups, some squats, some jogging in place, something for 5 minutes, because what that's going to do is get that blood flow going. It's going to pump oxygen into your brain. You're going to get some of those heat shock proteins, which is going to get that adrenaline flowing, and then it's going to flood your brain and your body with healthy endorphins like, dopamine, serotonin. These are those feel-good hormones that we want to experience. And literally 5 or 10 minutes. I think we all can compromise 5 or 10 minutes to make this happen. That's why I call it oiling the machine. It's something we should do daily. Get that blood pumping through your body. That way you're ready to go. And then the number 3, the last one I'll share with you, is just simply staying active throughout the day. Like I said, most of us were spending time at a desk. But if we could get up every hour or so and move, there's far more benefits than just being healthy. There's something called the Pomodoro effect. I don't know if you guys have heard of this, but basically they've done research on this that says if you work for 25 minutes and then take a 5 to 10 minute break where you get up, you move, you do something completely different from your work, and then you come back to your work and then do it again 25 minutes, 5 to 10. Not only is it good for your health, but it actually boosts your productivity, enhances your focus. There's something about that 5 to 10 minute break that actually improves your productivity and your energy, your focus, all of those things. So that's a few of the exercise strategies. The ones that I'll talk about regarding nutrition, super quick here. Number 1, meal prepping. You guys are busy. This is a quick, simple, easy strategy. My personal go-to is Sunday. I'm going to spend an hour max in the kitchen, maybe an hour and a half just to clean up the dishes. And I'm not even going to make, 30 meals. I'm going to make 5. I'm going to make my lunches. I think I can handle breakfast. I'll come home and I'll make dinner. My lunches, that's where I struggle. That's where I want to go out and eat. That's where I start, going for the fast food. So I'll just make 5 meals, and I'll keep them super simple. If you guys have questions on this, hit up Blake. I know Terry, she'd be happy to help you as well. But grab some healthy choices, or make some good, healthy, positive meals. If dinner's your hard one, where you're like, man, I've had a long day, I come home, I don't want to cook, I'm gonna eat out, that's what you need to meal prep for. So I'm not necessarily one to have my fridge stacked with Tupperware. That's not me. But I do think there is still a lot of value, especially for people who are super busy. The second one I'll share with you is just simply healthier choices when you are going out to eat. I mean, sometimes we'll meal prep and then we'll run off and leave our meal at home just because we're not in the habit of taking it with us. But still, that doesn't discount the fact that when we go to places like Chick-fil-A or wherever it is, we can still grab something healthier. My go-to is Chick-fil-A. I get the Cool Wrap. I get 5 grilled nuggets, and then I get like buffalo sauce. It's low in calories, it's healthy, a lot of protein, and it's affordable. Chipotle, that's another one of my go-tos. You go to Chipotle, and you got a meal for like 2 days.
Yeah.
I mean, I know it's good and we want to keep eating, but cut that thing in half and you can make it last 2 days. And it's a healthier choice. And there's tons of healthier choices. The thing that it comes down to is having the willpower whenever you go to these places and pull into the Chick-fil-A line. You want to get the salad. The chicken sandwich looks good. So you got to have a little bit of the willpower. And that's a muscle too. That's a muscle. The last one I'll share with you is just simply healthier ingredients when you go to the grocery store. Swapping out the canola oil for extra virgin olive oil. Instead of getting the microwave fried chicken breast, you're grabbing the chicken breast that you're going to throw on the grill. Simple things like that. And once again, if you need a list, if you need some help with this, that's what High Power is here for. Me and Blake can help you with that. Terry, I know she'd be happy to help you as well. So the last one I'll talk about here with the health and exercise is sleep. How many of you guys feel like you get enough sleep every night? Like what's like, on a good night, where are we sitting?
6 hours. 6
Wow. Yeah. And what time are we usually going to bed?
12 or 1.
And what are we doing right before we go to bed?
Eight phones.
TV or phone, scrolling, right? This is the recipe for awful sleep. And aside from the phone, I really do my absolute best. Like my diet will be awful. I'll be falling off on my exercise, but I do not take my sleep lightly. Because if I don't get 8 hours, like I'm just not me. It's like sleep is one of those things that I absolutely need. And the thing is sleep is like the single domino that affects all the other ones. If the sleep's bad, you can count it out. Your diet's not going to be great. You're not going to have the energy to go to the gym. That's the thing that causes everything else to just fall apart. So really, this is probably the most important one. And of course, like we've all talked about, screen time an hour before bed. If we can cut it off an hour before bed, that right there is going to be something that changes the game. That blue light, I don't know the science behind it, but apparently it keeps us up. It doesn't allow us to fully shut down. And this is a recent thing. This is a recent thing over the past, 20, 30 years that we really have to deal with. The other thing, caffeine. Caffeine, I try my best that by noon, I'm stopping the coffee and the energy drinks, right? The pre-workout, all that stuff, it stops at noon. There are times when I've gone to 3, but what I've noticed is that anytime I start having caffeine, coffee, whatever it is, after 3, that's when I start waking up at 3 in the middle of the night, stressing out about work, and I'm wondering, like, God, are you trying to speak to me right now? No, I just drank too much caffeine the night before or the day before. And so we have to look at the fact that caffeine has a half-life of 12 hours. So if you have caffeine at 11, then at 11 at night, that's when it's completely out of your system. So we've got to make sure that three's got to be that hard line where we say, okay, I'm stopping. 12 is actually what I would personally recommend, even though I'm really bad at following that advice myself. I'll be honest with you guys. The last thing I'll share with you is creating a positive bedtime routine. And I know that sounds like very childish and toddler-like, but actually, I've got a 4-year-old at home, and he just started pre-K, and we are trying our best to be very adamant. Blake, talk to me, bro. We are trying to be very adamant about that bedtime routine. And so this works for children, and I guarantee it'll work for adults as well if we'll actually follow it. And it's the 3 B's. Have y'all heard of this? Bath, brush your teeth, read a book. Those 3 things. That's exactly what we do with Arrow as he gets in his bath. And then after that, we're going to brush his teeth. And then we're going to read him a book. After that, it's bedtime. For us, for adults, same thing. Get in the shower. That warm water is going to start to, allow your body to relax, to cool off, to signify, hey, you know what, the day's done. I'm calming my body down. It's going to stimulate that rest and digest response in our body. Then we're going to brush our teeth. That says, hey, you know what? I'm done eating. You know what? No more food going down. Like, this is it. I'm not drinking anything else. That signifies, okay. And it prepares your body. This is decades we've been brushing the teeth. This signifies, hey, it's bedtime. The last thing is reading a book. Hey, I don't know what it is about the Bible. I love reading my Bible, but it is the best thing to put me to sleep. So if we'll read a couple of pages out of whatever book it might be, I guarantee you it will 100% help. And that's how we create a positive bedtime routine. Cool. What do y'all think? Is that helpful? Did y'all get anything from that? Anything beneficial? Awesome. Let's talk about this last one. We're going to talk about mindfulness. Anybody familiar with the word mindfulness? Have you heard this word?
Staying at the present.
Yes. So we'll talk a little bit about mindfulness and what it means. It's just simply the quality or state of being conscious or aware of something. It's funny that we're having this workshop earlier today. I got on Instagram and I'm scrolling. I'm getting ready to come here and just hang out for a minute. And I see this comedian start talking. He's like, "What is this word mindfulness?" He's like, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, we weren't talking about mindfulness. We were just living our lives. He's like, you know what? When you were on a bus 30 years ago, you were on a bus. Like, you weren't doing anything else. You were sitting there watching condensation drip on the window. He's mindfulness. He said, when you went to the bathroom and you're sitting down, you're going to the bathroom, that's what you were doing. Mindfulness. He's like, whenever you would rewind your videotape before you send it back, that's mindfulness. It's just like, it's so funny because we've created these new things like mindfulness and mental health that years ago, we were like making up stuff because of the changing times. It's so interesting. But, nonetheless, there is still some value to this. Like I said, we can't change the times and go back. We've got to adapt, right? And that's where mindfulness comes in. But here's what mindfulness is not. Mindfulness is not becoming a Buddhist monk, living in a monastery with your hands in a mudra and chanting Om. That's not mindfulness. That's not mindfulness. All it is simply, like Drek said, it's being present and aware in the moment of what's going on. Whether you guys realize it or not, at some level you're mindful right now, especially if you're engaged. Hopefully I'm doing that for you guys. If you're not like thinking, okay, so what am I doing for lunch? What is going on? And you're actually like listening and engaged, little do you know you're actually being mindful. That's what happens when we're sucked into what's on that phone. It's like that's where our attention is. But we lose a lot of the other self-aware aspects of it. And that's really what we're talking about here is becoming self-aware. And so some ways that we can start to practice this mindfulness. I tell, even as a personal trainer, I always tell my clients, it's all about your breathing. When you're exercising, it's all about your breathing. It always goes back to the breath. The same thing with mindfulness. And the first thing I'll tell you guys is we've got to stop holding our breath. And many times we're not even aware that we're doing it, but we'll be working, we're on the computer, we're doing whatever, and we will be holding our breath. Like I guarantee you, now that I'm bringing it to you, you're going to catch yourself holding your breath. And that's not good. Like the breath is actually what keeps the blood, the circulation, and the oxygen going throughout your body. So I want to tell you, stop holding your breath. The second thing I'll tell you is practice deep diaphragmatic breathing. That's where those deep belly breaths. You know, I know Mary can talk about this a little bit because she's a yoga queen. But really what we get into the habit of is that shallow breathing, right? We're just coming in through the nose, out through the nose. It's just like barely coming into our chest. But when we practice this deep diaphragmatic breathing where we're taking in as much oxygen as we can, it's filling up our diaphragm, our core is expanding, that is when we really start to get the benefits of oxygen. I mean, seriously, I guarantee you, if you would spend a few minutes just taking deep diaphragmatic breaths, you're going to find later in the day, oh my gosh, I got energy. And I got clarity, like I'm thinking clearer. It's crazy how such a simple thing like this can make a huge difference. And so the practice that I use is something called carve the wheel. And I don't know if I came up with this or I read it somewhere or something, but I call it carving the wheel. And so basically, and this kind of goes back to a little bit of a yoga thing, is that when you breathe up the spine, and when you exhale down the front. So you're kind of like creating this circular pattern with your breathing. You're inhaling up the spine, and then exhaling down the front. And then where it brings in this practice of mindfulness is, and the carving the wheel aspect, is every time you get to the peak of the inhale, you want to focus on that transition between the inhale and the exhale. That little tiny point where it becomes an exhale. And where the exhale becomes an inhale. And you focus more and more on that point. With each breath, you're focusing on that tiny transition from the inhale to the exhale. That simple practice, it's going to bring you into the present moment. You're going to see your awareness increase. And that's when you start experiencing some of this mindfulness. And so, a couple of questions for you. Are you aware of what you're thinking from moment to moment? Have you ever been in that situation where you start getting angry or frustrated and you're like, why? How did I even get to this place? Like, why am I thinking about this? Why am I stressed out about this? And you can't even like pinpoint what the thought or the action or whatever it was that led to this. Like you just like started spiraling out of nowhere. Self-awareness is huge if we want to start to mitigate stress. Because we've got to know when we're starting to experience and feel the stress, right? The quicker we can attack it, the quicker we can face it or shine light on it, that's the quicker we're going to be able to dissipate it. So, do you know when you were actually feeling stressed? It all comes back to self-awareness. 90% of the population lack self-awareness. Most people are going throughout their entire lives completely unaware. And guys, we're getting mad and stressed out and upset about other people. And they're not even aware of themselves, much less of how we feel about them. And we're getting stressed out and they're like doing their thing. This is the importance of us becoming self-aware. And so what I want to do really quick is just a simple practice where we can kind of get into this state. And so if you guys would, we're going to take a quick second. I want everybody to play along with me. We're going to just take a second, put your hands on your thighs. Close your eyes for a second. Take a big deep breath in through the nose. Exhale through the mouth. Big deep breath in through the nose. Exhale through the mouth. Good. Allow your forehead to soften. Allow your jaw to drop. Big deep breath in through the nose. And exhale. Allow your shoulders to relax. Good. Big deep breath in through the nose. Exhale through the mouth. On the exhale, feel your body in contact with that chair. Big deep breath in through the nose. Exhale through the mouth. Take in all of the sounds in the room. My voice, Leo crying, the voice in the other room. Big deep breath in through the nose. Exhale through the mouth. Notice your hands and the fabric or the skin that they're touching. Just bring your awareness there. Big deep breath in through the nose. And exhale through the mouth. You can slowly open your eyes. This state that we're in is a state of mindfulness where we're becoming more aware, more present, more cognizant of ourselves, of our emotions, of our mental state, of of the environment around us, that is the practice of mindfulness. And when we can access that, it's very difficult for stress and a mindful attitude or a mindful experience to coincide together, right? One will have to go. It's either the mindfulness will go or the stress will go. And so what will happen is when you practice this, if you're carving the wheel, you're listening to the sounds in the room, and you're bringing awareness to what's touching, is the stress or the thoughts or whatever will start to come back in, and you just breathe through it. That's why coming back to the breath is so important, right? So hopefully that helps, this mindfulness practice. Joe, get something from that? Was that okay?
Yes.
Awesome. Cool. I've got one more quick one that I want to share with you. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but I can't talk about mindfulness without talking about this next one. And I actually think y'all will get a lot out of this last one. And it's called reframing. Anybody ever heard of reframing? You know what reframing is, Drex? So basically, I've got the definition up there, but basically what it is changing your perspective about a thought, an idea, a stressor, an experience. It's whenever we are presented with these things, we have preconceived ideas or notions of what these things are. And it's taking these things and changing our perspective on it a little bit. And so I'll provide an example. Let's say you're going through a difficult, stressful financial situation, right? And you feel yourself starting to spiral. Man, how am I going to pay this bill? Like, I don't know where the money's going to come from. I don't know how I got myself into this mess. That can be kind of like a defeatist attitude. And I don't know about you guys, but here in High Powered, we're not here to have a defeatist attitude. We want to have a high powered attitude. And so what we do is we change the way we view that stressor. Rather than saying, man, this thing is going to crush me, I feel like I'm defeated by this thing, we say, you know what, this thing's actually here to help me become more financially responsible. This is a test. This is a challenge. This is something that I can do to become better with my money. And if I will overcome this thing, then I'm going to be rewarded with more money to be responsible with. I'm going to be able to manage and steward more money. And so it's just that reframing that, one, it puts you back in the driver's seat of the situation. It puts you back in control. But two, it makes it a more positive situation, and it kills that stress. You know, now you're more empowered to do something rather than feeling like that stress beating down on you. So let's talk about how we can do it. Number one, you got to become aware of the thought, the feeling, the stressor, the experience, whatever it is that you're feeling this stress come from, right? Two, you change your perspective around it, just like we talked about. You know what, this thing isn't here to defeat me, it's here to make me better, it's here to make me stronger. We shift our perspective on it. Number three, some will say this is optional, I don't think it is, we pray. I heard the pastor say this past week that the Bible calls us to cast our cares on the Lord. And cast, if you're a fisher, you know you're casting that line out. But many of us, we reel it right back in, right? But it doesn't say cast and reel your cares back in from the Lord. You know, it says to cast them out. And so, once again, if that stress is coming in, we're casting, we're throwing it off. We're taking it off of ourselves and putting it out there, right? We're taking on that more productive, that more empowered way of viewing it. Number four, practice, practice, practice. This is not something that you're going to get down the first time. I've been trying to do this for, 10 years now, ever since I kind of went through that season in my life, and I still battle with this. I'll feel like I'm really good with this and overcoming these things in my mind for a season, and then there's other times where I feel like it's just killing me, it's crushing me. And so it takes practice, but eventually you become master of your mind. And I don't mean that to sound like some sort of weird guru type thing, but seriously, God gave us a mind, and we are supposed to be in control of that thing. It is supposed to be our slave, not us slave to it. And that's really what happens. We become slave to it, right? We're controlled by our habits and our behaviors and our experiences. But whenever we start to practice some of these things, putting ourselves back in the driver's seat, we have to remind ourselves that, no, this is our mind. Our mind, we are not our minds. I don't know if I'm really articulating that well, but we are in control of that, and we have the ability to change our thoughts. So, let me wrap this up for you guys really, really quick. Let's go back over everything we've talked about. Number one, setting proper boundaries, protecting your peace. Number two, improving your health through exercise, nutrition, and sleep. Number three, practicing mindfulness and deep breathing. And four, reframing those negative experiences. and stressors. So as we kind of close this thing up, like we talked about earlier, I want you to think back to a time in your life where you've been stressed, you've been overwhelmed, you've had a lot of different things going on in your life. And I want you to think about, how did you react in that situation? You know, what was your strategy then? What did you do? How did you overcome it? How did you accomplish it? You know, sometimes the answer to the question that we, or the answer to the question that we have is found within the question. So sometimes we just have to simply look back to that time when we were stressed out to see what we need to do. But the big question I have for you today is, moving forward, how can you implement some of these strategies to overcome that? Do you feel like there's some way that we can take the things that we've learned today and begin to implement them into our lives? Because the thing is like, yeah, cool, great information, I can see how it would be helpful, but right now I really want you to get specific with an action plan of, no, at my desk, I'm going to practice mindfulness after lunch. Because if we don't have a time and a place when when we usually experience stress, then we're just going to continue the cycle we're already in. So if you've got these strategies, if you felt like there was one that specifically stuck out to you or spoke to you, I would say take that and begin to think about how you can implement that into your life, and then start to do so.